I'd like to welcome each and every individual to the Voices of Integrity podcast for being a man, a father. How do we set this up? 37 years ago, tomorrow, I was a father for the first time. Words cannot explain the feeling that is for a man. It's unbelievable. So there's many people to thank for this. It's actually a 52-week series. So 52 tips to being an amazing, man, an amazing father. Patrick and I are going to be leading us on this journey. And if you're any of either of our children, you're probably thinking, what are they? Why are they doing it? And our kids are not as hard on us as we are. And so you'll be like, there's probably going to be a lot of sense of humor, a lot of laughing. There might be some tears. There's a lot of frustration. So I think what I would encourage you, and like with most things, books and stuff like that, women tend to go ahead and invest more in, it seems like, to relationships often than men do. And so, ladies, if your husband, what I would encourage you, ladies, if you wives and mothers, I think a good husband, not a great husband, but I think a good husband's gonna watch one of these podcasts, once a week with you. There's 10,080 minutes in a week. Patrick and I would definitely both say confidently that we were not the best fathers. I mean, when you look at what's happened in our families, the buck stops here. And man, I'm still looking 37 years later. I'm like, what in the world did I do wrong? I mean, how your kids turn out, how much responsibility is that on the dad? A lot, the majority of it, I think. And so, the tipping point for this, I've been kind of thinking, what can I do? The tipping point is, my son-in-law, Josh, he went ahead and gave me some really nice gifts, all surrounding pickleball. So very thoughtful gifts. And so, Josh, appreciate those gifts. And I'm like, what can I give him back? How can I help him? And how can I help our son-in-law, Jason? And then two of our sons, one is married and doesn't have any children yet. And then how can I help all fathers? And so if you're a dad listening to this, if you're not willing to go ahead and spend 30 minutes a week listening to a podcast and then having an adult conversation, you can agree, disagree with Patrick or I. Sometimes he and I will agree on things, sometimes we won't, and that's okay. So I don't know how good of an introduction this is, Patrick, but I'm excited about this. Do you have any thoughts or setup on this whole series before we jump into tip number one?
No, I think that I've gone over some of those and I thought that they were very good right off the bat. I wish I had known these things when I was first starting out. I wish that somebody had sat down with me and had a discussion with me about these specific things. And somehow, in some way, these kind of conversations don't seem to be to happen in a timely fashion as like at the beginning of fatherhood. They all tend to happen at the conclusion, right?
Like it's crazy. I mean, my dad said later in life, he said the problem with having a lot of kids close together is you really don't know the mistakes until they're all growing. Like you can't go back and say, well, this one I messed up on. I'm going to do it different on this other one. And so it's true. I mean, it's absolutely true. And so let's take a jump into, tip one. And this is also dedicated to our son, Jonathan, who died 5 years ago yesterday. And there's his song that he wrote 6 years before he died, but he never got to hear anybody uh, perform it. And so, a couple weeks before his death, the lady he met out in Utah, a friend of and a client of ours, and they got to be good friends. And she told him a story. And we should get that in here too, where he can go see the backstory of it. It's just amazing. And she called him and called me like a week before, 2 weeks before he died, and said, "Jonathan, I found the perfect artist for your song." And he never got to go ahead and hear somebody sing his song. And so, yeah, a lot of stuff there. So, so it's not about you. I mean, I don't, as a dad, it's just not like, I don't know what to say. Like, is this not clear? like, like, like Patrick, he's hilarious. He's funny. Like, he's just a funny guy. He was talking to, a young man, father and, and a husband, and he shared something really cool about Mother's Day, and then something about Father's Day. So Patrick, I don't know. For me, it just seems like this is not a hard concept for men to understand. It's not about you, but maybe you can go ahead and add some clarity.
Well, I think the best way I can contribute to that is to articulate how I feel now after 20, 40 some years of experience with being married and having children. Because we started in 1984, which would be 41 years ago. And, 40 and a half technically. And here's the thing. When you're young, you want to be a good dad. I didn't know how to necessarily do that because I didn't particularly have a good father. And so I was just determined to try my very best and do my thing. But here's the thing when you're thinking, I want to be a good dad, you're already kind of on the wrong foot from the start. What you have to be doing is saying, all right, I've got my first child being born. What does that child need for me to be to him? What does he need in a dad? Not what did I need in a dad and then how I can do it. So that's the distinction. I wish I would have heard that from somebody 40 some years ago. It's not about you being a good dad. It's about what does each of your children need from their father based on who they are. That's the start of everything because it's not about me then as a dad, it's about them. And that would, I think, just about cover being a husband and being a dad, both. And it'll also cover about being a grandparent, right?
Yeah, and see, that's the thing that's interesting because each child needs something different. And
Right. I didn't get that. I didn't understand that 40 years ago.
Right? I mean, I was introduced to personalities, very early on, well, before I even had children. And so that gave me kind of a head up, like that gave me an advantage, like, okay, um, you know, like my children are going to need something because they're different. And so, Patrick, your oldest one was a boy,
Yes.
and our oldest one was a girl. And what's weird about being a parent when you have more than one is you kind of sort of figure it out in a way with the first one, and then the second one's totally different than the first. You're like, what in the world? And so our second one was a boy, third one was a girl, fourth one was a girl, fifth one was a girl, and then sixth and seventh were boys. And so this is what's weird. Um, your kids can tell you you're a good dad when you're not. And your kids can tell you you're a terrible dad when you're being a great dad. And so, and it can happen even with your wife. Your wife can say you're being a great dad when you're really not. You're really not being a great dad. Or your wife can tell you're being a bad dad when you're really being a good dad. I mean, it's just weird. Other people can say a whole bunch of things. And so, you have I think, like a spiritual authority. Like at some point you're going to stand before your creator and you're going to give an account. And I get the feeling that, from a lot of dads, that if their creator says, you were a pathetic dad, I get the sense that they think that they're going to explain to their creator why they weren't a bad dad. I don't see that. I just don't see that. And so, you know, like I would, more than happy to go into marriage counseling. Like, if I want to get out in front of it, if I'm not doing something that I should be doing, I need to know that. Like you don't know what you don't know. And so, and then Roseanne and I went to marriage, seminar. Like I looked at it like insurance, and I'm like, you can't get fire insurance after your house burns down. And so I've had in the last couple days, I've had a number of women, my wife, one of them, saying, she just told me last night, she says, they don't make men like you. I'm so fortunate to have a husband and a father like you after 40 years of marriage. Now, she's not always that happy with me. But yesterday she was like I didn't realize how good I had it. And so it's like I had another woman a week ago say I shared my philosophy on being a husband and what I approached and how I approach being a husband. And she just said, I don't know of anybody other man that thinks like that. I'm like, really? And so my philosophy is my wife should never have to tell me twice to do something, ever, like ever. In 40 years of marriage, she had to tell me twice to do something once. And I'm embarrassed about that. It should have never happened. That's the standard. She's not my mom. Like she shouldn't have to baby me. She shouldn't have to harass me. She shouldn't have to bug me. And my goal is that she doesn't even tell me once. My goal is I'm on it. I am on that thing. I think I might work harder now to be an amazing husband than I've ever worked before. And I'll tell you, some of you goofball husbands out there, you got to pay attention to your kids. Like if you're a husband and you don't recognize that your wife adores your children, they're a part of her body. Like they're an extension of her. You don't treat your kids, well, that's not going to go well with you. Your wife isn't going to respect you. And I think lesson 2 is don't seek to be liked, seek to be respected. I would say that it would be fair to say that Patrick's wife and my wife didn't always agree with our discipline of our children. They thought we were too harsh, or they didn't. So it's not that they liked our fathering, but they respected us because it's like, we're going to do the hard things. You just are. So it's complicated, man. It's not easy. It's not easy being a dad. It's just not. It's really, really hard. So you have to make decisions that sometimes are not popular at all with anybody. Your wife doesn't like you. Your kids don't like you. Nobody likes you. Everybody, I mean, even the church, even people, like, everybody thinks you're wrong, and you better listen to them. You better listen to them. Because if everybody's telling you you're wrong and you're not listening, that's just being the S word. Like, that's not like, you got to listen. But just because everybody's telling you you're wrong doesn't mean you're wrong either. So you're playing, as a dad, you're playing the long game. And you better never undermine your wife in front of your kids. I don't even know what that means. It doesn't mean that you always agree with her. And it doesn't mean you don't challenge her even sometimes in front of the kids. Help me out here, Patrick.
Well, I think what I would say from my perspective is that that you're exactly right, that being the dad is being willing to be the quote unquote bad guy. The guy that says, no, that's just not a good idea. No, that's not going to happen that way. I mean, oftentimes it is just saying, no, here's the boundary, and I know where it is, and I'm going to enforce the boundary. So the idea is that being liked is something that I don't see that really happening that much as a dad, because your job is different. And I do agree with you that being strong, that is what is expected of you. You're the guy that's got to stand, even when, I mean, and you got to you have to be prepared to make a judgment call and be prepared to live by it. And and being liked has nothing to do with any of those. In fact, being liked, it undermines your ability to plant your roots in and stand in the storms. That's your job, because you're the guy that your family's going to need to hold on to. And being liked, it undermines that. It eats away at that if you have any real interest in being liked. I guess that's my perspective from that. So now, of course, I think I told you that I was 45 before I realized that I was supposed to actually care about being liked. It's like, oh, that was a little slow. Okay.
Well, and again, I still haven't. I'm 61, and I just don't see that. I don't see that as being one of the job requirements of a dad.
Right.
I'm going to be respected because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to seek to do what's best for my wife. I'm going to seek to do what's best for my kids. And I think a lot of dads today, they get it messed up. They challenge their wives in things they shouldn't, and don't challenge their wives in things they should. How do you know the difference? It's when you're challenging your wife or your kids for your own ego or your own enjoyment or your own pleasure or your own whatever. It's for you. And wives are super as our kids. Like it would be so much easier just to give in to my kids or give in to my wife So no, I'm not going to do that. Not because of me. It doesn't bring me any more benefit at all. As a matter of fact, it just brings me more work and more hassle, more frustration, like I don't want to do it, but I'm going to do the right thing. Now, there are some men out there, and I don't know how to help you. My heart just breaks for you. And I don't know how to use even the right words. And that is, you're different around your wife and your kids than you are around other people. And so, like, people would go ahead and say to my wife or kids, especially my kids, or say, like, your dad, he's not really this big of a jerk, is he? My kids, my kids being what they are, they're like, you have no idea. You think you haven't seen anything yet. So, like, and so often husbands, fathers, let's say, my dad was a pastor, so I grew up that. So often men who are in the church that are good Christians and nice people and everybody likes them, their poor wives and kids despise them because they're two different people. At home, they're one thing, and somewhere else, they're something else. And so I don't know even what to tell wives and mothers. I mean, my heart goes out to you if you have to go ahead and tap dance around your husband's feelings. And you're trying to go ahead, like, man, if you can't take, like, if your wife goes ahead and says something and you get all dramatic about it, and then you try to flip it back on her where she's the issue, she's not being nice, she's not being a good wife, she's not submissive, she doesn't trust you. I mean, all those manipulative words. If you as a husband, don't have the emotional strength to have your wife criticize you, I just feel bad for you. So your wife, she gets to see who you really are. And so it's complicated. Ladies, number of ladies, we love having ladies on this. Questions or thoughts or anything that you have? The ladies are speechless.
I want to know if they, no, I won't do that.
They're either in awe or disgust. I mean, one or the other. They're like, I don't even know what to say. Like, ladies, I don't even know what to say to you. Like, if you can't get your husband to go ahead and watch this and say, we'll probably come up with some type of, discussion point, I'm guessing, where you can ask questions, ask yourself questions. Like, I've asked my wife our whole marriage for 40 years, 1 to 10, how would you rate me as a husband? And then she'd tell me. And I don't do it when she's just nice or happy with me. I do it like at all different times. And what do you like most about what I'm doing? And what do you like least about what I'm doing? What could I do to improve? So I'm a business owner, and so I have to make my customers happy. That doesn't mean they're always right. There's times that, especially in the executive coaching world, there's times I tell our clients things they don't want to know. There's times I have to tell my wife things that, she doesn't want to hear. And so, but she should be able to feel free to say anything she wants with me. And I should be able to go, that's interesting. You think, and I'm going to get this straight just so I understand. You think I am the worst husband in the world and the worst father. Is that what I'm hearing? Yep. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for being honest. I appreciate that. I'm just curious, why do you say that? Like, if you as a husband aren't able to go ahead and take that type of a hit, you're not a real man. I'm just telling you, you're not a real husband. You're not a real father. If you get defensive and angry and upset and you attack your wife because she's saying something about you, you're training her to go ahead and not help you become the man you were created to be. And so, if you don't have a half an hour conversation with your wife, you sit down and once a week, you sit down and you go through some of these or whatever, and you have an adult conversation. Don't use your words, use your action. Don't tell your wife how much you love her. Actually show it in your actions. And probably in some of the future sessions, we'll go ahead and talk about some of the things like Patrick was sharing with today. We spent an hour and a half just trying to figure out how we're going to present this, because it's really important. I mean, this is really, really, really important. And Patrick was telling me about some of the things that, his wife just with the kids, and he'd come home and he'd be like, I got him. You go out, you do whatever you do. And you go out and, he'd go out and play with them. Sometimes he'd work with them. Sometimes he'd do different things with them. Took all 6 of them. Like, yeah, take them all and do whatever he needs to do. And I'm like, well, yeah, doesn't every dad do that? Now, the difference between Patrick and I is he actually enjoyed doing that. Me, I did it not so much out of enjoyment of just being around. I just did it out of sense of responsibility, not an obligation. And I didn't really think I was a hero in doing it. Like, hey, pat me on the back, tell me how great of a dad I was. This is what dads do. I think this is what dads do. Dads do things that they don't want to do, they don't enjoy doing. They do it out of a sense of responsibility. Like Patrick said, what does my child need? And I need to be there to be that type of a man, that type of a father to my children. And so we're going to have in these next, 51 weeks, we're going to have some interesting stories. And if you're a woman on this, you're going to go ahead and say, man, I wish my husband was like that. And then the next week, you're going to say, man, am I glad my husband's not like that? I mean, and so men, like, you go ahead and hear some of the stories on how Patrick talks to his wife and what he's told her. You hear some of the stories that on Mark on how he talks to his wife and what he says to her. And you're like, man, I can't believe they do that. You can only do that if you have a pattern where your wife knows every day he's showing up and he's trying to be the best dad and the best husband. He's showing up every day. And I may not like what he's saying about me, but he loves me and he loves the kids, and he shows that. He doesn't talk about it. He shows that every single day. If you have any questions on this, and maybe you go through this and do it with another couple. And maybe you go ahead but for sure, and wives, I don't know, you plead with them, you beg them, you go ahead and seduce them. You reward them. I don't know. Maybe you make the same dinner, every single night for them, unless, same thing, every single day, unless they go. I mean, to me, it's just a sad thing if a husband won't go ahead and listen to something that's important to his wife and then have a conversation about it. To me, if a man won't do that, I think that reveals a lot about the man. If you have any questions on this, connect with the individual who invited you to participate in today's session, or you can call toll-free 888-230-2300, outside the U.S. 630-393-9909. And always come early, always stay late, because that's where the really good stuff is, for sure. And always remember, we can accomplish so much more together than we ever could on our own. Have an amazing day. Bye-bye.